zu Beginn noch mal zu Deutsch und Englisch und dass Englisch die schönste Sprache ist, das bleibt auf jeden Fall so bestehen, im Sinne von, wie sie klingt und wie gut sie vor allem in Musik und, Poesie benutzt werden kann. Also, das steht außer Frage. Jedoch gibt es dann noch was, was man beleuchten muss. Und zwar, wir machen es mal so, indem wir sagen, dass von allen Sprachen, die es auf der Welt gibt, sind Deutsch und Englisch die Top 2 im Sinne von, was man damit anfangen kann. Man könnte als Weltsprache noch Spanisch oder Chinesisch in Betracht ziehen. Jedoch ist Chinesisch meiner Meinung nach zu ungenau und wahrscheinlich auch zu schwer dadurch. Und zu fremd für die anderen Sprachen sprechen. Und Spanisch ist zu schnell einfach. Und dadurch, dass es zu schnell ist, ne, so, das ist, eignet sich's nicht wirklich, weil Weltsprache bedeutet ja nicht nur, dass du das, sagst, wenn du in 'n Hotel eincheckst, sondern überall. Aber dazu später. Ähm, also bleibt nur noch Deutsch und Englisch. Englisch eignet sich sehr gut, weil es leicht zugänglich ist, weil die Grammatik nicht schwer ist, die Artikel sind nicht schwer und, sogar Kinder können Englisch schnell lernen. Jetzt würde man denken, Deutsch ist nicht so, weil Deutsch ja angeblich so schwer ist, aber als ich in der Türkei war im Urlaub, haben da alle Deutsch geredet und zwar nicht nur ich komme ursprünglich aus privilegierter Schicht. Wir waren im Fünf-Sterne-Hotel, da konnten alle Deutsch und zwar ich weiß jetzt nicht, das ist schon sehr lang her, aber das war auf jeden Fall einwandfrei. Aber nicht nur die im Fünf-Sterne-Hotel konnten alle Deutsch, sondern auch der Taxifahrer, der Busfahrer und in der Stadt auf dem Basar, konnten alle Deutsch. Das heißt, es kann auch nicht so schwer sein für Nicht-Muttersprachler. Und da Deutsch und Englisch sich sehr ähnlich ist es wahrscheinlich ungefähr gleich. Vielleicht, wie gesagt, Englisch 'n bisschen leichter und präsenter aufgrund der vielen Musik, in der hauptsächlich Englisch gesprochen wird. Und mehr Länder, die Englisch sprechen. So, wie gesagt, ich finde, Englisch ist die schönste Sprache, richtig gesprochen, aber es geht jetzt um was anderes. Nämlich, es ist ja, wie gesagt, so einfach, so zugänglich und es hat sich so eingebürgert, dass alle Englisch können, mehr oder weniger. Und in der Schule lernen alle Englisch. Das ist sehr gut, wenn es darum geht, ins Hotel einzuchecken, 'nen Taxi zu fahren und so weiter. Wenn man jetzt Englisch und Deutsch also ungefähr gleich sieht, nehmen wir mal als Auto, hat man Prime BMW ist Deutsch, Prime Mercedes ist Englisch. Auch hier würden wahrscheinlich die meisten sagen: „Ja, okay, Mercedes ist 'n bisschen besser.“ So einfach allein vom Namen, vom Ruf her. Jetzt sind Deutsch und Englisch BMW und Mercedes. Unten auf der Straße ist es auch okay so. Jedoch bedeutet ja Weltsprache auch, dass es somit auch nicht nur im Taxi, aufm Basar, im Hotel, sondern auch weiter oben gesprochen wird. Und deswegen müssen wir Deutsch und Englisch als BMW und Mercedes im Dunkeln zuerst betrachten und dann sind sie ja ungefähr gleich und es ist eher Geschmackssache, was man wählt. Je höher man jedoch kommt in der Seriosität, wenn man wählt, welche der beiden Sprachen die Weltsprache sein soll, geht immer mehr das Licht an. Und wenn man ganz oben ankommt, was das Weltgeschehen und die Politik quasi ist, und das Licht komplett an ist, muss man leider, oder was heißt leider? Das ist jetzt nicht schlimm, wenn das so ist, aber es ist einfach so, muss man zu dem Schluss kommen, dass der BMW Deutsch, der steht einfach so da, wie er ist. Qualität, so wie man es erwartet, alles gut. Aber Englisch auf diesem Mercedes ist auf der Motorhaube ein riesiger Fenerbahce-Aufkleber. Oder hinten Dieter an Bord auf diesem Mercedes. Was das Auto völlig disqualifiziert. Und das kann man an einem einzigen Satz leicht verdeutlichen. Und es ist nicht die ganzen Buts und die ganzen Asses in der Sprache. Damit habe ich kein Problem, das ist sogar gut, weil daran erkennt man, das hält einen beim Thema, weil niemand will über irgendwelche versauten Sachen reden in der Politik. Und als Beispielsatz, um zu beschreiben, was ich damit meine, dass hinten auf dem Mercedes, auf dem Prime Mercedes ein riesiger Agro Berlin Sticker ist der Satz, wenn ein Politiker mit einem anderen Politiker, also die Führung eines Landes hat einen Disput mit der Führung eines anderen Landes. Und dieser Disput schaukelt sich so hoch, dass er von lauwarm zu heiß wird. Und dann sagt ein Politiker des einen Landes zu dem anderen Land den Satz: No war with us. Und hier haben wir 4 Wörter. Und in diesen 4 Wörtern sind mit die 2 wichtigsten Wörter, die es überhaupt gibt in der Politik. Und das ist das Wort Krieg und das ist das Wort No. Und das Wort Us ist auch noch ziemlich wichtig. So, das Problem an Englisch, dieser Agro-Berlin-Aufkleber hinten auf dem Mercedes, ist, dass das Wort No, Nein und Wissen bedeutet. Somit könnte man den Satz No war with us übersetzen in 2 verschiedene Bedeutungen, die das komplette Spektrum der Semantik bedeuten. Nämlich No war with us würde man eigentlich denken, das heißt kein Krieg mit uns. Es könnte aber auch leider, wenn man jetzt davon ausgeht, dass diesen Satz vielleicht ein Politiker sagt, der nicht ganz mental aufgeräumt ist und quasi so wie Mindgames oder strategische Verwirrtheiten mit dem Kriegsspiel betreiben wird, dann könnte der auch meinen, wir werden euch zeigen, was es bedeutet, mit uns Krieg zu haben. Und es disqualifiziert Englisch als Weltsprache komplett. Komplett. Wie wenn du einen Menschen mit Putzfimmel zum Gärtner machen willst. Oder einen Bienenallergiker zum Imker. After a long pause, "Do you mean," she asked in a low voice, "that we should be only friends?" "Precisely," he said. "That is just what I do mean, and nothing more." "But have you considered," she asked, her tone still low, her voice trembling with agitation, "have you thought of yourself? Why should you be sacrificed to save me from the punishment of my folly? Why should you do out of pity what you may repent all your life? Oh, it cannot be, it cannot be. She continued more rapidly and with growing excitement. I thank you from my heart, Sir Harvey. I believe you mean it generously, nobly, but let us consider the question without fudge, he retorted. Pity has little to do with it. Your folly, child, has much, because apart from that I should not have made the suggestion. For the rest, put me out of the question. The point is, will it suit you? Of course, you might wish to marry someone else. You might wish to marry in fact and not in name. Oh, no, 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 she cried, shuddering, and shaken by the cruel awakening through which she had gone, she fancied that she spoke the truth. You are sure? Quite sure. Then I think it lies between Chalk Hill and Coke Hall, he said. Read that, child. And drawing from his pocket the letter in which Mr. Northey had announced her flight, he laid it before her. If I thought you were returning to your sister, I would not show it to you, he continued, watching her as she read. And then after an interval, well, shall it be Coke Hall? He asked. Yes, she said, shivering under the cruel, heartless phrases of the letter as under a douche of cold water. A douche? To douche. Es heißt wirklich Dusche. Okay. Douchebag. Okay. If you really are in earnest, if you mean what you say, I do. And you will be satisfied with that, she murmured, averting her eyes with my friendship. With your friendship, I will. You have my word for it. Then I thank you, she muttered faintly. And that was all. Absolutely all. She opened the door, and in her sack and Lady Betty's Tuscan, as she stood, for she had no change to make, she passed down the stairs before him and walked beside him through the rain across a corner of Shepherd's Market. Thence they passed along Curzon Street in the direction of the little chapel which the country church porch over against Mayfair Chapel, and conveniently near the Hercules pillars in which the Reverend Alexander Keith held himself ready to marry all comers at all hours without notice or license. It was the common dinner time, and the streets were quiet. They met no one whom they knew. Josephine, dazed and shaken, had scarcely power to think. She walked beside him mechanically, as in a dream, and could never remember in after days the way she went to be married, or whether she travelled the route on foot or in a chair. The famous Dr. Keith balked of one couple and 1 guinea. War das die vor dem Pound oder was? Englische Goldmünze bis 1860. For that was his fee. Welcomed the pair with effusion. Accustomed to unite at 1 hour a peer of the realm to a reigning toast, at another an apprentice to his master's daughter, he betrayed no surprise even when he recognized Sir Harvey Coke. But at once he led the way to the chapel, said the kneelers, called the witnesses, and did his part. He wondered a little, it is true, when he noticed Josephine's pallor and strange dress, but the reasons people had for marrying were nothing to him. The fee was everything, and in 10 minutes the tie was tied. Then only as they stood waiting in the parlour while the certificate was being written, fear seized her and a great horror, and she knew what she had done. She turned to Sir Hervey and held out her shaking hands to him, her face white and piteous. You will be good to me, she cried. You will be good to me. You will keep your word. While I live. Why not, child? But calmly as he spoke, his face, as they went out together, wore the look it wore at White's when he played deep, when round the shaded candles oaks noted in doomsday crashed down, and long descended halls shook, and the honor of great names hung on the turn of a die. For deep as he had played, much as he had risked, even to his home, even to his line, he had made today the maddest bet of all, and he knew it. Your Grace is very good to call, Mrs. Northey said, working her fan with a violence that betrayed something of the restraint which she was putting on her feelings. But of course the mischief is done now. The girl is gone, and I know, my dear, I know, the Duchess answered soothingly. Believe me, I'm almost as sorry as if she were one of my own daughters. Yeah, for the matter of that, it may be yet, Mrs. Northey answered, unable to behalf herself longer. Begging your Grace's pardon, of course. I hope not, she continued sourly. But indeed and in truth, young ladies who show the road are very apt to follow it themselves. Indeed, I fear that is so. Too often. Her Grace answered patiently. Too often. She had come prepared to eat humble pie, and was not going to refuse the dish. I hope at any rate that the young lady will take the lesson to heart. Die denken jetzt, die hat den Brief erhalten, richtig? Wahrscheinlich. Mrs. Northey continued, with a venomous glance at Lady Betty, who, much subdued, sat, half sullen and half frightened, on a stool beside and a little behind her mother. I hope so for her own sake. It is for that reason I brought her, the Duchess said with dignity. She has behaved naughtily, very naughtily. His Grace is so angry that he will not see her. Tomorrow she goes into the country, where she will return to the schoolroom until we leave town. I hope that and the scandal she has brought upon us may teach her to be more discreet in future. And more steady, I trust it may, Mrs. Northey said, biting her lip and looking daggers at the culprit. Täter. I am sure she has done mischief enough, but it is easier to do than to undo, as she would find to her sorrow if it were her own case. Very true indeed. Do you hear, miss? The Duchess asked, turning and sharply addressing her daughter. Yes, ma'am, Lady Betty whispered meekly, quick of fence as she was with men or with girls of her own age. She knew better than to contradict her mother. Go and sit in the window, then. No, miss, with your back to it. And now, the Duchess continued, when Lady Betty had withdrawn out of earshot, tell me what you wish to be known, my dear. Anything I can do for the foolish child. She is very young, you know. I will do. And if I make the best of it, I have friends, and they will also make the best of it. But Mrs. Northey's face was hard as stone. There is no best to it, she said. Oh, but surely in your sister's interest, the Duchess expostulated. Your Grace was misinformed. I have no sister, Mrs. Northey replied, her voice a trifle high, and her thin nostrils more pinched than usual. From the moment Miss Maitland left the house in such a way as to bring scandal on my husband's name, she ceased to be my sister. Oha! Lord Northey has claims upon us. We acknowledge them. The Duchess stared but did not answer. My husband has claims upon me. I acknowledge them. Mrs. Northey continued with majesty. The Duchess still stared. Her manner betrayed that she was startled. Well, of course, she said at last, that is what we all wish other people to do in these cases. For the sake of example, you know, and to warn the young, but dear me, rubbing her nose reflectively with the corner of her snuff box. It's very sad. I don't know. I really don't know that I should have the courage to do it. In Betty's case now, His Grace would expect it, of course, but really I don't know. Ich weiß auch nicht, was hier gerade passiert, aber ist egal. Die wissen jedenfalls noch nicht, was los ist. Your Grace is the best judge in her own case, Mrs. Northey said, her breath coming in a little quickly. For our part, she added, looking upward with an air of self-denial, Mr. Northey and I have determined to give no sanction to connection so discreditable. The Duchess had a vision of her own spoiled daughter laid ill in a 6-shilling lodging of a mother stealing to her under cover of darkness. And in his Grace's teeth of a tiny baby, the image of Betty at that age, and she clutched her snuff box tightly. I suppose the man is impossible, she said impulsively. He is quite impossible. Mr. Nosey has not seen him, certainly not. But if she were brought to see what she has done in its true light, the Duchess asked. Where's up the Duchess? Asked quickly, her motherly instinct still impelling her to fight the young thing's battle. Also das Mrs. Nosey ist die Duchess. Und diese Betty, wer ist diese Betty? Ihre Tochter. Ja, das ist ihre Tochter. Your Grace is the best judge in your own case. Also die reden über die einfach. Ja, das hat die auch schon vorher gesagt, dass die der Talk of Town ist. For our part, she added, looking upward with an air of self-denial, Miss Nosey, the Duchess had a vision of her own spoiled daughter, laid ill. Mr. Nosey has not seen him? Certainly not. Not even then, Mrs. Nosey replied with Roman firmness. Under no circumstance whatever could Mr. Nosey's and I countenance conduct such as hers. You are sure that there's no mistake, my dear? Not a shadow of a mistake, Madam answered with acrimony. We have traced her to the man's lodging. She reached it after dark, and under the most disgraceful circumstances. Mrs. Nosey referred to the arrest by bailiffs. Langsam check ich's wieder. The news of which had reached Arlington Street through Lane the Mercer. But the Duchess took her to mean something quite different, and her Grace was shocked. Dear, she said, in a tone of horror, and looking instinctively at her daughter. She wished that Lady Betty had not seen so much of the girl, wished still more fervently that she had not mixed herself up with her flight. I am infinitely sorry to hear it, she said. Infinitely sorry. I confess I did not think her that kind of girl. My dear, you have indeed my sympathy. Mrs. Nosey, though she knew quite well what the Duchess was thinking, shook her head as if she could add much more, but would not, and the Duchess, her apologies made, rose to take leave, resolved to give her daughter such a wigging by the way as that young lady had never experienced. But while they stood in the act of making their adieu, Mr. Nosey entered. Das ist jetzt der Mann von der Schwester. And his dolorous head shaking, which would have done credit to a father's funeral, detained her so long that she was still where he found her, when an exclamation from Lady Betty, who had profited by her mother's engrossment to look out of the window, startled the party. Oh, yeah, ma'am, here she is, the girl cried. I vow and declare that she is. Okay. Betty, her Grace cried sharply, remember yourself. What do you mean? Come, we must be going. But, ma'am, she's at the door, Lady Betty replied with a giggle, and turning and thrusting her muff into her mouth. She looked over it at the party, her eyes bright with mischief. Mrs. Nosey's face turned quite white. If your daughter means that the misguided girl is returning here, she cried, I will not have it. It is not to be thought of, Mr. Nosey claimed. She would not have the audacity, he added, after her behavior, and he was moving to the window when the door opened and the servant announced Sir Hervey Coke. The Duchess gave vent to a sigh of relief, while the Northies looked daggers at Lady Betty, the author of the false alarm. Yeah. Meantime, Coke advanced, his hat under his arm. I am really no more than an ambassador, he said, gaily. My principal is downstairs waiting leave to ascend. Duchess, your humble servant. Lady Betty, yours? You grow pretty every day, Mrs. Northey. I have good news for you. You will be glad to hear that you were misinformed as to the object of your sister's departure from the house, about which you wrote to me. Misinformed? Mrs. Northey exclaimed with a freezing look. I was misinformed, sir. Completely at the time you wrote to me, Sir Hervey answered, smiling on the party. As you will acknowledge in one moment. On whose authority, pray? With a sniff. On mine, Coke replied. 'Twas an odd coincidence that you wrote to me of all people. Why, sir, pray? Because, he began. And there he broke off and turned to the Duchess, who had made a movement as if she would withdraw. No, he said, I hope your Grace will not go. The matter is not private. Private, Miss Northey cried shrilly. She could control her feelings no longer. The hussy has taken good care it shall not be that. Private indeed? Tis not her fault if there's a man in the town who is ignorant of a disgrace. Nay, ma'am, softly, if you please, Sir Harry interposed, with the least touch of sternness in his tone. You go too far. Mrs. Northey glared at him. She was pale with anger. What? She cried. Hoity-toity! Do you think I shall not say what I like about my own sister, but not about my wife? He answered firmly.